It's rich. It's gonna be rich. Yeah, they renamed Heinz Field.
I saw that. I
Like,
couldn't pronounce it.
I know, we need a. Yeah. That's a good guess. Heinz Field. Rich State. Yeah. Like it's in there. It's not in there. Okay, fine. Wonder how much of that was down premium. That's what I was asking. Wait.
People keep asking me what I take in the pill.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Awesome. Right.
There's our one for the two. Pass them on down. No harm.
So for the record, do we have anybody in the audience?
Jonathan and Christopher Patterson.
Did you get that, Kristen?
I didn't, I'm sorry.
Jonathan and Christopher Patterson.
Everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Staff.
Oh,
I mean,
And Catherine?
ready?
okay, you can get going. Yep.
Okay, great. I'd like to call to order the Monday, July 11th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting. First order of business is people should use their mics and kind of swallow them as much as possible. By the show. Any public participation? Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we received email from a member of the public. Man, that's terrible. I'm just gonna turn this off for a second. See if that stops. No, not really. All right, just wanted to write a quick note for public comment for tonight's meeting. I would like to commend the library for its vast digital offerings. I have been using Canopy, Hoopla, and Overdrive a great deal this past year, mainly to watch or listen to lectures from great courses. I've completed about 7 courses so far, and watching these lectures, I feel like I'm auditing college-level classes for free. I do believe I have learned a lot watching these videos and believe the service is a great resource for our community. I urge the board to continue supporting Canopy, Hoopla, and Overdrive. Again, thank you for providing these digital services, and thank you for your service, Nick.
Okay, great. That's very nice. Any other public participation?
No.
All right, so the next order of business is the trustee oath of office. So we have to administer the oath of office. So Eric, you could raise your right hand and say after me, I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge,
and I will faithfully discharge,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
the duties of the office of Bethlehem Public Library Trustee.
the duties of the office of Bethlehem Public Library Board of Trustees.
Great, thank you very much. Yes. Okay, the next order of business is the election of officers.
Mark, I'm waving over here.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not sure when to put it, but I would request that before actual elections are held, that anyone who is a candidate, when there's more than one trustee for the seat, to be allowed to talk a bit
sure.
before the election, the actual votes.
No, absolutely. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to the nominating committee, which Michelle and I sat on. It came to my attention the last couple of weeks that there's a provision in the bylaws that I'm not an ex officio. I can't be an ex officio member of the nominating committee, but I wanted to make sure we had more than one person on the committee. So I did appoint myself to the committee, just for full disclosure. Michelle, if you want to go through this potential slate, and then we can take nominations from the floor. If there are any.
So for the 2022-23 slate of officers, we have for president, Mark Kissinger. We have 2 for vice president, Michelle Walsh and Charmaine Fujisina. Treasurer, Sherry Whiting. Secretary, Caroline Brancatella, and UHLS representative, Lisa Scoons. For vice president, do you want to go over the voting process? Or?
Sure. Well, I think we'll.
Okay, Charmaine mentioned that we'll have a vote for vice president as it stands right now in the bylaws. It allows for 1 vice president, so we will have a vote for that.
Okay, I can't really hear particularly well, to be honest with you. So before the vote's taken, I would like to make offer both Michelle and myself a chance to make some comments.
Sure, Charmaine, this is Caroline. I had a question because I'm the one who had raised the issue of co-vice presidents last time. And we had addressed the issue of the bylaws in 2019 when we had co-vice presidents. And I pulled up the minutes from 2019 just to make sure that I was correct on that. And it was unanimously approved that there would be co-vice presidents and that there was, proposed language, and there was an agreement to take a vote on the final language before the end of the year. Poor follow through on the board's part, that did not happen, but I would say that matter is settled pretty much, that I think that co-vice presidents are permitted. I agree that we should. I would make the argument that it is not prohibited at the bylaws. But I make the argument that it's not prohibited in the bylaws, but it has already been settled by this board. Everyone who was at that board meeting and is still currently a board member voted yes to that. Well, I personally don't remember the vote. I believe I started in 2019. And so that would have been my first night here. No, I'm happy to pull up the minute. I mean, it's reflected in them. My point is that you mentioned that it was a unanimous vote. I'm just saying that was the first night I was here. I think for a few reasons, a 2 vice president is not efficient. Vice presidents, they just facilitate meetings. That's really all they do. There isn't really any training to it. You basically review parliamentary procedure and get on with it. Any board member can add items to the agenda. There's no limitation regardless of who's an officer. Everyone has the ability to put their name in for an officer position every year. So it's not a foregone conclusion that the VP necessarily becomes president, even if historically that's been the case. Having the vice president doesn't limit access to the position of president in any way, nor does having 2 vice presidents increase access. And the bylaws are pretty clear that they do not provide for a 2nd vice president. They don't say, yeah, we prohibit it, but they say, no, we want. Maybe. And we have encountered scheduling conflicts between the 3 of us several times sorry, Sherman, I'm trying to talk loud in the microphone. So we have encountered scheduling conflicts several times between the 3 of us when it comes to the agenda meetings, and adding a 4th person, I think, is just going to complicate that scheduling even more. In addition, this is a group of volunteers, and creating more work for a 3rd volunteer, it's overkill. I don't believe a competent board is one that creates more work for itself, and adding another officer position it's inefficient, somewhat bureaucratic. So anyhow, that's my feeling on having 2 vice presidents. Again, if we voted, and I didn't look at the minutes, but I completely believe you. If I voted yes for it, it was my very first night here, assuming that that was the case.
No, understood. And if I can respond to two things there, appreciating that you've thought about this a great deal. I think one of the things that I would say is that this was heavily discussed. I can happen, there were lots of emails on it. This was heavily discussed at that time. And again, I would say that the board was was extremely supportive of that position at the time, understanding that you were not a part of that process, but it was voted in on your first day. So to some of your points about why it's not efficient, I can certainly see some of those. One of the big reasons that people thought it was efficient was, I think, two big reasons. Is that one of the scheduling challenges that you're bringing up is that if there are scheduling challenges, only one vice president might do this, one vice president might do that, or you can swap out meetings. Also, it was more about giving two people the perspective of what the president does, so that there was more than one person. When there's a need for another president does a big job. When there's a need for another president, that more than one person is really in the position to really look at that position realistically. And I'll also say, just from an optics standpoint, I can certainly see both lawyerly arguments in whether it's not prohibited by the bylaws, but it's also not explicitly permitted by the bylaws. If we're going to do something that is explicitly prohibited by the bylaws, then we're not following the bylaws.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that anyone had bad intentions or anything like that, but we're not following the bylaws. So I don't accept a bylaws argument on this.
I was wondering when I could weigh in on this.
Yes, and I would also say that there, and this is, I take responsibility for the fact that, I brought this up and then I did not join the nominating committee. And that was simply because I was trying to manage, my schedule and expectation and not wanting to do anything in a halfway. But I would also say from an optics standpoint, if we do have the president and we have the vice president saying that she doesn't want a co-vice president for the next slate. Oh, that's not what I said. You're correct that I paraphrased that, but if you were making arguments that I think were already litigated here to some extent, I do think that has bad optics to it.
Yeah. Okay. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hold on.
One of the things I was going to ask for is for some background, but and so we can continue with this discussion. But I also have some remarks to make. First of all, I want to say congratulations, Sarah. And if you see my ear like this all the time, it's just because between the echo and the volume, I'm trying to discern the words. So I'm going to apologize. I'm kind of sick at home, but if you see this, it's because I can't fully understand everyone. I hope the public, I don't know what they see, but so the background is helpful. That was one of the things I was going to mention about the 2019 situation. But so I'm totally fine with the board who's physically at the table to continue discussion. But I also want to make some remarks myself personally. So you just let me know when that's best suited.
Yeah, and before I go, I'll just say I have the meeting minutes from July 8th, 2019, but before time, hard to remember them. But whereas descriptions of officer duties in the bylaws do not in all cases reflect the duties performed by those officers, and in some cases include duties delegated to staff on a motion by Brian Sweeney and a second by Lisa Scooms, the board unanimously agreed that the Vice President for Policies and Government, the Policies Committee draft updated descriptions of duties for President, Vice President, and Secretary in the bylaws and present these updated subscriptions for the board to vote on before the end of the calendar year. So poor follow through on our part, but that it does reflect the unanimous vote. And you were seconding motions that day. The very next one, on a motion by Brian Sweeney and a second by Michelle Walsh, the board unanimously agreed that the Vice President for Policies and Governance and the Policy Committee draft provisions to the bylaws explicitly conferring on future nominating committees authority to modify the list of officers in a given year so as to align the slate to the strengths, abilities, and willingness to serve members of particular boards. These revisions will be presented to the board before the end of the calendar year. So you seconded that motion.
And yeah, you have that there. Again, I'm going to repeat. first night there, not knowing at all the conversation, and now knowing the conversation and having it come up now, doing the research and being more knowledgeable overall on how the board operates, I absolutely do not think there's a need for a second vice president. I do think for the reasons I've already mentioned, it's just not necessary. There has never been a time when they needed the second vice president. I don't know what the reasoning was behind Brian and Mark, if they ran for the position at the same time, if one of them held the position, the other one wanted to share in it. I'm not sure what the situation was, but
I can tell you, I think it was that everyone understood that Mary was nearing the end of her tenure as
Yeah.
president. And that,
I can weigh in too.
Yeah.
I'm subject to
my apologies.
No, that's fine. It clearly was, Brian and I both agreed that, we wanted to sometimes be president. And so the compromise was to set up two vice presidents. It really, and then he decided not to run, so it changed everything. But honestly, it really didn't add or detract anything. It was just a title. So it really didn't do anything as far as the mission of the library. It was kind of just another title. I mean, we tried to delegate the duties, but it ended up being, meaningless in the 2019 year, I could say. So.
Do you feel like you got a better perspective of the presidency in that position?
Maybe a little bit, maybe. Yeah, not much.
and I would agree, not much. Again, the vice president facilitates meetings when the president's not there. The vice president isn't attending committee meetings with the president. They aren't attending a lot of the director meetings with the president. It's just an agenda meeting once a month. And then if the president isn't around.
I mean,
it is.
I want to chime in. I mean, I probably got more training informally from Mary and I talking offline than anything else. So it wasn't a factor being like that.
Then before we move on, I'd like to make a motion to vote on those at the next meeting, to vote on those changes. We'll pull those up and to vote on those changes to the bylaws at the August meeting.
Yeah,
I actually have something to say about that.
Couple things about this, so we definitely have that to the list.
Okay.
And I would suggest is that when we the policy committee together, we vet all the changes and come with a package of changes.
Okay, yeah, I actually was going
Yeah, and I
to.
think it's important to say that I believe that the last time I led the meeting in Mark's absence, I think that it was a success. And I hope others feel that I've done a good job. But if others want to change it up, I'm okay with that too. It's just, I feel very, very strongly that a second vice president is overkill. And that it really is just bureaucracy. And so if the board decides, we want to have two VPs, that's fine. I don't think this will be a vice president. It's not that big.
Okay, is there a time, can I jump in now?
No, I'm communicating that well enough, but I'd rather see just one VP rather than two.
Okay,
So,
I'm losing.
I want to recommend you, but before I do that, so you want to make a motion?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I make a motion that upon any other necessary revisions to the bylaws, that the language that was put forth in the July meeting, 2019, which we will identify, also be voted on with that batch of changes. I would say no later than September 2022. Does that seem reasonable, or do we need more time? I just want to set a date certain.
Okay,
No, I think that's fine.
all right.
And I want to reiterate for,
Okay, let's see, I got-
Can someone signal me when it's time for me to talk?
well, I just want to reiterate for those new to the board, for Sarah specifically, that the bylaws on, I don't know what page it is, the third page.
Wait, I don't understand, guys. Can anyone hear me? Jeff, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Suggested it's just one president, one vice president, and I'm sorry, I didn't highlight it and I can't find it at the moment, but it is in these pages.
Okay. It is getting difficult for me to figure out what's going on. Because I'm hearing part of things and things are moving on. I've been flagging myself here, trying to get into the conversation. Is this a time where I can say something?
Okay, well, yeah, sure, because we're discussing Caroline's motion, seconded by Lisa.
Okay.
Okay? So-
Okay, I didn't even hear that part.
Okay, so you want to,
I've lost total track of where we are.
okay, so we'll state the motion again.
Yeah. Sorry, Charmaine, I'll speak, I understand I
Okay,
speak quickly.
yeah.
So we had debated the issue of 2 vice presidents. I think that we're gonna leave the slate as is right now. But I have made a motion to include and I should say, it's not I will leave it to the committee that we're gonna leave the slate as it is right now. I have made a motion to, in addition to any other modifications to the bylaws that the board deems necessary, that we also vote on the proposed changes to the bylaws that were presented in the July 2019 meeting be voted on along with those changes no later than the September 2022 meeting.
Okay, so before we second that, is there still time to make some discussion?
Okay, you should speak on the motion. It was seconded by Lisa, but please speak on the motion if you'd like.
Okay, well, I haven't been able to jump in to say anything, so I'm gonna say, because I think I heard Michelle talk about her feelings about whether there should be a second vice president. See, and so what this does relate to the motion, and people can figure out where it fits. How's that? Let me put that way. Because there has been some discussion going on, and I understand the dilemmas of technology. So I'm going to jump into the discussion if that makes sense.
No, go ahead.
Okay, is that all right? So I'm hearing a lot of feedback, but hopefully you can hear me. So I just want to clarify my intent and my interest in the position. I was actually inspired by Mary Redmond, who oftentimes sat right next to me, when she commented that you had to beat the bushes to get officers. And I took that to heart. And I know that a number of my colleagues on the board take on other responsibilities, like Lisa with the Upper Hudson and Caroline with the secretary position. So I know people were taking things on, and I felt like I had the skills and interest. And this is what's important to me, is augment those of the current leadership team. Especially in certain areas. I understand, I hear what Michelle said, that it's really about running the meetings, but I think for me, it's more than that. I emailed my interest when Mark and Michelle put out the call for who's interested in what committee and officer positions. I didn't know who was going to respond to that and how they were going to respond. So how I worded my interest was, I was interested in the vice president or co-vice president position, because I really didn't know what the leadership team is still intact, actually, what their interests were as anybody else from the board. So I, not knowing that and operating kind of in a vacuum, I said, okay, I'm interested in the vice presidents, particularly, and I assume if Michelle was going to some other position or not interested, or co-vice president, if she was interested in continuing. And partly I made that, I would have not mentioned co-vice president if I didn't already know that the board had done it in 2019. So that was a concept that was new for me. And I said, well, they did it in 2019. I wanted to put my name in to be considered for either vice president or co-vice president, depending on what Michelle's intentions were. I didn't know that. And we already covered, that was my next piece, of the nominating committee of 2019, the wording. I think Lisa was, the minutes, because I had to check, we talked about having to revise the policy, but I think that was mostly about the treasurer position. So, as of today, I know Caroline raised it at the end of the last meeting, encouraging the nominating committee to consider co-vice presidencies. No one said anything about the bylaws then. I know it was the end of the meeting. But I want to be clear, I didn't put my name forward to contest, to make this a contested election, for where we have to vie by secret ballot. I mean, when I read that in the bylaws, I'm like, okay, I guess that's the process. I'm not interested in competing here. I'm interested in joining a leadership team where I feel like I have a perspective that might assist the board, the library, and the community. Period, end of story. However, I am aware of a past practice where 2 men were appointed as co-vice presidents. I think we have 2 very qualified women who may share some things and may differ in some things, looking for the same opportunity. Now, the last thing I want to say is I don't want to be elected in a process that violates the board's bylaws. Plain and simple. Whatever happened last time was in violation of the board's bylaws. What we're doing now is in violation of the board's bylaws, if you read it carefully, in terms of certain positions that are in there that should not be there, which I think I couldn't quite hear everybody, but I kind of heard that something about the treasurer position, I think may have been discussed just now. So what I'm going to ask is that I don't know how this works now. I was going to ask for kind of consultation on the Roberts rules piece of this, is to, before the election of the vice presidency, is to, if the board is amenable, to make a motion to revise the bylaws, and I don't know if you can do that without putting it on the agenda, to accommodate the consideration of co-vice presidents to date. Because if let's say the board is amenable by whatever vote we take for two people to take that vice president's position, if we take it tonight, we're in violation of the bylaws. So I don't know how to resolve that. I was going to then pass it back to the board for discussion on anything I've said. I agree with Michelle. It's not a huge power position. It's not. My schedule is extremely flexible. After 45 years of social justice work, I am winding down. Of a 20-year writing and publishing career, I'm winding down, but I'm still engaged. My schedule is extremely flexible. And if it's a matter of making a little extra effort to make meetings, of all of us, I think I've got the most open schedule there is. And I would be totally fine to miss an agenda meeting if I were the only one holding up things. For me, I think I have something to offer. I'm not looking to replace or contest with anybody. It is to join a team that I think I bring something to. Given the past history, I think Caroline used the word optics. I'm not sure. Again, it's really hard to understand from this point. I think optics do matter. And I'll leave it at that. But I'm not doing this for optics. I'm doing this after 2 years of serving this board, and I have previous board experience, to augment a team that is here to serve the board and the library and the community, period. I'm willing to work around the other logistical ends, should the board feel this is appropriate. So I've laid a bunch of stuff out there. I don't know the process of if the matter of it has to be on the agenda, so we have to push it to the bylaw amendment later on, then fine. You violate the bylaws before to elect 2 men, I would be totally fine if you did that tonight to elect 2 women. If you don't feel that that's appropriate, then I encourage the board to have a discussion on how we are going to figure this out. And those are the ends of my comments. Thank you. And Mark, when you talk on your microphone, it would be, I know you're doing the best you can. Because of the mask, just make sure perhaps you're as close as you possibly can, because of everyone, it may be a little, of everyone, it's a little hardest to hear you. And I also want to acknowledge Sarah, because I think Michelle said it was her first meeting too, and they were talking about all this. Let me put it this way. I walked into my first Board of Ed meeting to an executive session with it, and I remember thinking to myself, what? So anyway, I hope you're not sitting there thinking, what? I think this is something we can all discuss. And I think a healthy dialogue, this is what we need sometimes, is a healthy discussion and dialogue. We can differ in the perspectives, but eventually the board has to figure it out together. And there I end.
I'm going to reiterate that the vice president position is entirely administrative, and we are a team here of leaders, and you don't need to be an officer to have a more collaborative role. Any person at any time can add anything to an agenda, can put their name in to become an officer. Every single year, VP is just an administrative role, and I feel very strongly that there does not need to be 2.
Okay, any other discussion on Caroline's motion?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Are you green or amber?
Great.
Okay, you're good.
Get right into it.
I just want to clarify. So before, when this was discussed in 2019, the main motivation for changing it to 2 was simply because there was 2 people that wanted to do it. Am I understanding that right?
And the treasurer position had moved from being a board member to being our hired position, as is appropriate. We have an independent treasurer who is not a sitting board member. So when that position on the elected officer position was eliminated, the person who was treasurer was still interested in being in the pipeline for the presidency. And so it was decided at that point.
I see, so there was like a 4-person executive board, the treasurer became a paid position, so there was questions about having going forward with the 4-person board with different positions.
Correct.
Yeah, and I'll let Mark provide further context, but I was on the nominating committee that year, and it was for that our longtime president had expressed that this would be her last year. And that everyone was like, okay, this kind of said to themselves, Mary has been doing this a long time. We need some options for who will know how to be president when she steps down. And at the time, both Mark and another board member who since decided not to rerun, were both potentially interested in the president position down the line. And please correct me if I'm saying
No, that's
it
right.
correctly.
Exactly.
We're both potentially interested in the president position down the line. And we thought, I think it was two-pronged. It was that both of these people, having to afforded the ability for both of these people to be exposed to really what the president is doing. And I've been looking through the minutes, I recall, we were also, I think everyone was a little frustrated at that time with the work level of the board. Meetings were going very long, and thought that putting people in the vice presidency position could perhaps allow the president to delegate some work that way and sort of better spread it around a bit or make it more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, the goal, one of the goals is not have meetings that went to 9 o'clock.
Which we've achieved for the most part.
Right, we've been averaging that, right, yeah. So it means you go right to 9 sometimes after, so it got to be too much for people.
And so my experience is there has never been a long meeting.
Right.
Yeah, so different experiences, I guess.
So, all right, so we have a motion and a second discussion. We probably should vote on that motion. And I would suggest we should move to election of officers with a twist. I think we should probably, well, I guess we could just go through election of officers as stated, and then if we add a second VP, down the road, we can then do a second VP election in August or September. I mean, that's a, see how it goes.
I think at this point, it's up, you guys are the committee, I think.
Right.
Charmaine, I'm speaking, can you hear me?
She's muted, but she's
She's
shaking.
saying
Okay.
yes.
If there's no interest in a co-VP position at this point, then there's no need to change the slate or to change it at a later date. So I'm because there are now 2 people directly up for VP,
Right.
I'm asking the board, specifically the people who are running for VP, if the bylaws are changed at a following meeting, if I'm trying to figure out how to do this most efficiently. Sorry, I'm gonna fly.
That's why it's kind of a dilemma.
If we change the bylaws, I guess how I think we can do this is I will add to my motion. I know I'm making it easy on everyone.
Okay.
Is if we change the bylaws at a later meeting to include flexibility in the positions, at that time, someone on the board can take a motion to add a second vice president or any other position included in that flexibility, because I think the flexibility addresses all positions and we can decide at that time. Does that?
Yeah, I'm gonna suggest an amendment to that motion, because I think we should move the treasurer to a board appointed position on election, and then we should eliminate the assistant treasurer. So you said add, so maybe to change, I would use the word change instead of add.
Okay, so help me guys with this
Okay.
motion.
Right.
Okay.
Well, let me just say before we continue
Yeah.
with the motion, as of right now, and I thought that this is what we were doing, the bylaws do suggest that if 2 people are interested, because the bylaws provide for multiple people being interested in the position. And I think that is the flexibility in the way this board has been created. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't be flexible. I'm saying there's no need for a second vice president. So bylaws currently state, if there's more than one person interested in a position, which there is, there needs to be a vote, and that's fine. That's very democratic. That's a good way to do things. I don't think we need to add a second person to avoid the vote.
Okay, but here's my perspective.
I think, and I agree, yes, I agree that that is, would be the appropriate thing to do without a final vote on the bylaws. I think what I'm saying is that what I'm hearing, or what I heard, certainly from what I intended in saying, in bringing up the two vice presidents, and what I am hearing from Charmaine, is that she would be interested in a co-vice presidency if it was elected in a proper manner.
Can I jump in for a minute?
Sure.
Michelle, I hear you saying that, but I'm hearing I don't see. Now it's up to the board. Okay, because if there's a need or not, I'm asking the board to consider whether they would not just the committee, because I'm on a bunch of committees, we present stuff to the board, the entire board discusses, the entire board decides. So I hear you saying you don't see that. If there's a need or not, I'm offering myself as a co-vice president, and the board has to decide. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, and about the bylaws, you know, Mark, I'll be honest with you, Mark and I had a conversation about this. So here's the bylaws, okay? If we're going to say these are the bylaws, in 2019, the bylaws were set aside and people were selected. So I'm trying to say, in order to make sure that anything I do is in conjunction, on the correct side of the bylaws, we should change the bylaws and then hold the election. Harmeet's not even here. I don't know what he thinks. But I did have a conversation with Mark that it is hard for me to sit here to say, these are the laws, we'll put it aside this year. But this year now, we have to make sure we go by the letter of the law. So I'm going to just put that out there for consideration. I know what the bylaw said. I read it. In 2019, the board went ahead and, as I think the word was used, ignored them. I'm not looking for the board to ignore them. If you can't change them tonight, maybe we go, I like sort of, I think what I heard Caroline say, you know, if there's an amendment down the road, we can reconsider. I'll put my name in there, the entire board can vote. Or if it can't be amended tonight, then we'll figure it out. But as I said, it was not my intention to contest or bump anybody out. I know other people have joined the team in ways to give back. I am putting myself out there to do that. But I don't want to have, you know, it's difficult. I won't say I don't want to hear. It is difficult for me to hear. These were the rules. These are the rules tonight. Those same rules were put aside for other people in the past. I think we should go by the rules, and those rules are outdated in more than one way. So they do have to be amended. But to say tonight, this is the set of rules that are in place, when only 3 years ago, those same rules were set aside for 2 other people. I understand different board, different context, but I think that is important. And I think the community will see that. Thank you.
Charmaine, I wasn't saying I was making any decisions. That was not my.
No, I didn't mean you to say that you were making a
I did
decision.
not
You were expressing an opinion. I heard you express an opinion.
Right, which is okay to do.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and Charmaine, I would clarify that, you know, understanding your point fully, I would say that the board, to defend that board, I don't think that we ignored the bylaws. I think that we got 80% of the way to changing them. And then full responsibility as a member of that board got sloppy.
Right.
We approved them in concept. We approved the idea of amending them. So yes, we did not follow through. So I agree with your characterization that to the letter that I would still take the position that the bylaws do allow this flexibility, but I think the concept of the bylaws was addressed last time.
Yeah, I mean,
And
honestly,
then we just take it to the finish
yeah,
line.
and I don't see the flexibility in the bylaws. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I mean, it's pretty clear. We should have amended it, or we could have amended it. You know, we got sloppy. I think we got sloppy. I agree. We didn't have that secondary conversation to bring the amendments up, but I'll take responsibility as a member of that board as well. Didn't do it, but I don't see flexibility in the positions.
I would
So,
simply say that they're silent on it. They're silent on adding. And again, I'll just go back to if it's not something that's not strictly prohibited by bylaws, if it's silent on it, there is flexibility. I think that most boards would take that position. Bylaws are designed to be ended as little as possible.
okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, we've had a robust discussion on, on the issue.
I forget, I think, Sarah, are you sitting,
Probably we should, vote.
Sarah, are you sitting near your microphone to say something?
Well, I was just gonna make a statement. I don't know. I feel like the argument of, well, we broke the laws before, so we should break them now too, doesn't make sense to me personally. If the bylaws say something, if it was broken in the past, that was a mistake of that board, so we should not repeat their mistakes. Again, this is just my opinion. To me, not knowing, because I've only been here 15 minutes,
Right.
it seems like, unfortunately, we're in a situation where we have two qualified people who want the position, and that's great, but maybe we're not set up properly for that. So to me, it seems like we need to vote tonight because that's what we're set up to do, and somebody's gonna get the position. And then we should amend the bylaws ASAP to make sure that in the future, we're not in this situation again. That's, I mean, not knowing
Yeah,
anything.
no, I appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah.
So Mark, can I try to bullet out that motion?
Sure, just so we all understand what it is,
So I make a motion,
okay?
bullet 1, to vote on the slate that the nominating committee recommends this evening. Number 2, to make changes as deemed necessary by the board to the bylaws, including but not limited to the language that was proposed at the July 2019 board meeting, which we will pull up for records. 3, and to make those changes no later than September 2022. 3, after those changes are made, any board member can make any motion at any time. If someone wants to add a position, once the bylaws are formally amended, they are free to do so. I don't think that needs to be an emotion, but
Just stating intent.
for the benefit of intent.
Right,
I'm sorry, I don't understand that third one, that anyone could add an officer position?
Given that anyone can make any motion at any time, am I correct? That if once the bylaws, to your point, that once mistake, I do not make the same mistake twice, is that once the bylaws are amended, that if there is anyone on this board who feels that there should be a code, that they want to implement any of the changes of the bylaws at that time, any board member is free to make a motion. Again, I don't think
I
that's,
don't think you need that, actually.
that needs to be a motion. In a motion, I am simply stating it as an intent of how we're resolving this issue.
I'm so sorry, Caroline. I
It's
still
okay.
don't understand. You're just saying someone can say, I want to vote on this now?
I'm saying that after, let's say at our September 22 board meeting, let's say that the language was amended in the way that we've been speaking about. And at that time, I'm going to pick on Harmeet because Harmeet's not here and hasn't said anything and therefore cannot be implicated in anything. If at that time, Harmeet raises his hand and says, I make a motion that we vote in X board member as a co-vice president or as a co-secretary or as a co-whatever at that time, he or she can put that out there to the board and the board can vote on it. But again, that doesn't need to be a part of the motion. That is simply stating intent. Thank you.
Okay, so I think, then let's do this officially. So does that motion as outlined in the bullets have a second? Assume it does, but
I'll second it. I'll second it on my first meeting, and so
There you
then in 3 years, someone can come back to me and be like, hey.
I appreciate
Always
that.
be careful about seconding
Right.
motions.
Okay, and then is there any further discussion? Hopefully not much, on this.
I mean, I'm just gonna say, one of the things that I think as we look at the bylaws,
Yeah,
we have assistant treasurers and assistant
Right.
secretaries in there.
exactly.
Why are they even in there? So,
Yeah, totally agree. That's why I wanted to make the motion, not just add. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Any discussions remain, anything to add?
No, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposition? Okay, motion carries.
probably do that for years.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Moving on to the next agenda. So the next agenda actually is the election of officers. So Michelle, if you want to present the nominating committee, if you get it ready, but let's do it again, just for the,
Well, okay, so our slate of officers is President Mark Kissinger, Vice President, again, going by the bylaws, there are two people who want to be Vice President.
right?
So we have Michelle Walton, Charmaine Wujasinga, Treasurer Sherry Whiting, Secretary Caroline Bertella, and UHLS Representative Lisa Scooms.
Actually, can I make a motion to amend the slate? If this makes sense? I don't even know if this works. Does it?
I think
Go for it.
Yeah, no, here.
I am, here's the deal. I'm going to live by my words. And by doing this, I trust the board. As I said, I had no desire to do a secret ballot vote on a contested position. So what I'm going to do is to remove my name from that slate with the expectation that in the same meeting that those bylaws are amended, I will be back. And I expect the full board to be open for a discussion of adding me there. And I have been on this board for 2 years, and I understand that things get strung along. So I'm putting the date on whether it's August or no later than September. Because again, my intent was never to dislodge or contest a position. So I'm making a motion. I don't know how we do this, but anyway, motion to remove my name with the understanding that I would appreciate a full discussion immediately after the amendment of those bylaws.
Okay, does that motion have a second? Anyone second that motion?
I want to make sure I understand your motion, Charmaine.
Yeah.
You are removing your name from the slate tonight. And you are, but on the condition that you are expecting the board to vote on changes to the bylaws no later than September 2022, and that you will have the right to raise a motion or discussion at that time.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
I will second that.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Unanimous, opposed, abstention? Okay, that motion carries. So the election of officers then will not be at this point.
No, you still need to,
I know we'll not need a secret written ballot. So let's, for the record, we'll go with the original slate minus the contested VP. We can
I'll
read it
third
again.
time's a charm.
Exactly.
Okay, the nominating committee offers this slate of officers for 2022-23. President Mark Kissinger, Vice President Michelle, Treasurer Sherry Whiting, Secretary Caroline Bertella, UHLS Representative Lisa Scooms.
Okay, now I will ask as current president, is there any additional people that want to consider for any officers? Please don't say current. Okay. Okay, so hearing none, that is the motion that we need to go forward with. So the nominating committee brings forward that motion. Michelle's in the motion. I'll second, unless anyone else wants a second. And all those in favor?
Wait, can I have a quick question?
Discussion.
I have one other question. So I think I heard that, so Sherry's listed as a treasurer as an officer because it's in the bylaws. Is that correct? Or is she going to be in treasurer? Is that going to be a officer position after the bylaws are amended? I know Lisa was saying something about this, but.
That is something we need to change in the bylaws. But that will be considered in the bylaw package coming forward in August and September. And we
Okay,
need to
got
elect a treasurer. So at this point,
For this meeting, it's because of the bylaws. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. All those in favor of that slate, please signify by raising your hand. Position, and the motion carries. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Now, I want to move on to committee appointments. So I have a list of committee appointments. I'm still recruiting, however, so if anyone's interested. So the committees that we're gonna go forward in the next year at this point, there may be more, but at this point are finance, nominating, policy, building, personnel. And there's a collective bargaining side committee. So for finance, all I have right now is Michelle. I'm looking for another member. Anyone interested in serving on finance? Okay.
I think a lot of us would, we just all feel very. Some of us are not qualified.
Yeah,
Some of us are not financial leaders.
right. Just the ability to ask good questions, honestly, is needed on that committee. I'm gonna go, so I'm still looking for members, but at this point it's Michelle. Nominating, I have Michelle and Caroline. Any other further members want to be on nominating? Policy, I have Charmaine and Lisa.
Oh, good. That'd be a good team.
Anything else, anyone want to be on policy? Okay, building, I have Charmaine and Harmeet. Anyone else want to be on building? The big year for building. So, personnel, I have Sarah, Charmaine, and Lisa. And then collective bargaining, I have Caroline and Lisa as a, it's not an official committee, but just assign the duties to work on the collective bargaining team. Now, there have been, so if there anyone wants to be on the committees, it's still open, but at this point, those are the committees that moving forward. So I'm still looking for someone from finance. Harvey must appoint Harvey, but I will not do that in that sense. Okay, so that's the committee's appointment as of this point. Again, still open for people, and if anyone wants to come to a committee meeting or join a committee meeting at any point, they're invited. So it's a really good deep dive on issues. Okay, so we can move on to board annual authorizations, page 3 through 4 in the.
I'm sorry, I know we're already running behind schedule. I just want to ask, should we make collective bargaining a true committee? Isn't that a lot? I get the impression that's a lot of work, and shouldn't it be?
I mean, if we're going in,
Yeah,
I mean, I would, if we're going in, we can discuss this further, but I would say,
Yeah.
or any other committee as the president may designate in here. I'd already say that.
yeah. There is a.
But if it says or any other committees, then we should probably create a committee.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't program that now. Mark, I thought you had some other committees that were not,
Policy is the one that's not in the
but
bylaws.
also like
There's a,
programs.
yeah, there's a collection of programs.
Collection
Yeah,
development.
no one expects any.
Yeah, and that we kind of call those at need. So, the policy committee is not in the bylaws, but meets regularly, and we have found that it's very helpful. So I think that is a good one to keep. And then if we want to add the collective bargaining committee on there, I think that there's typically what we've said is we're nominating 2 people to participate in collective bargaining. We want to make it a committee. That's fine too.
Yeah. And we've done, like the fine committee, we put together temporary.
Right.
Fine, we put together, Brian and I did a music committee at one point, like ad hoc type thing, so, which actually was very, very.
The long range planning.
Long range
committee.
planning committee,
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Article 6 said that other standing committees will be appointed as the business of the board may require. So
Yeah.
Right.
create committees at your will.
Okay. So,
And so we don't have to do.
You don't need a motion.
no,
Correct.
Okay. Okay, let's get to, is that everything good? Everyone good on that? Go to board annual authorizations. Jeff, you want to take us through that?
Sure. So these are just the regular authorizations that the board stupid. Anyway, authorize every year, the authorizations, that makes sense, right? So these are the library attorneys, which are Romer, Wallens, Golden, Minot, Nolan, Keller, Kaufman, and Whiteman, Alston, Hannah. The library insurance brokers, which are Amshire and Marshall and Sterling. The library auditors, which are Marvin and Company. And the official bank depositories, there are several, even though we don't have deposits at all of these. TD Bank, M&T, Key Bank, NPT, and Pioneer. The official newspaper of the library is the Spotlight. Board meeting dates are official business generally the second Monday of the month. Special meetings are called as needed. The authorizations, the meat of this is the treasurer of the board is to verify payrolls of the library. The petty cash fund of $100 is established. We do that every year. The treasurer, account clerk, and director are authorized to enter an agreement with TD Bank for electronic transfers of funds between the library accounts effective July 1st, 2014. The following payroll-related transactions may be transferred electronically. This is IRS, New York State tax, New York State deferred comp. These are the ones you have to tell me it's okay at the beginning of the year for me to do that, and it's really not optional. You have to pay the IRS. They get very upset when we don't. And then you authorize the payment of some time-sensitive bills by hand-drawn check between board meetings. These are, generally speaking, the National Grid bill, which we're allowed to allow me to pay without the necessity of pre-audit, but we report it at the time of the meeting. And that wire transfers between authorized financial institutions are allowed. That's the new one, relatively new. We traditionally didn't do wire transfers, but we've added that, allow that under with specific board authorization and Sherry's approval. And then bonding, the director, account clerk, to a board treasurer bonded for $1 million each. The staff assistant who prepares the bank deposits is bonded for $35,000, and the messengers are bonded for $35,000. Those are the folks that take the deposit from the library to the bank.
I just have one question on the library attorneys. That doesn't mean we use all the attorneys. That just means you can use these attorneys.
Correct. These are the attorneys that I am authorized, the library is authorized. You have authorized the library to engage with these law firms because they have different specialties. Yeah. So,
Mark, I have a question.
Sure.
Maybe Jeff and Shari can. The petty cash I noticed was $100. Is that adequate to cover your? It
comes up so infrequently that it actually is fine.
Okay, thank you.
Tanya's over there. Tanya's nodding her head. Yes, we use so little petty cash. It's just not the way we end up paying bills.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on the board of annual authorizations for 2023?
Jeff, I just wanted to ask about why you had noted the RFP information on the list. Are you kind of dinging us, or are you just like?
No. I was asked to include the date of the last RFP for these. Now, professional services like the library auditors, the board is allowed to select whoever you want to select by whatever legal means you wish to select them. But I was asked at a past board meeting to note when the RFP for that had been put out, so I'm just including those on there.
Okay, any further discussion on the annual authorizations? I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, Charmaine, give me a second.
I'll second.
Lisa, great. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, seeing no opposition, that motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we don't need to vote on the board meeting dates, right?
No, you've already in the authorization. I put them in here because it's important that they're here. But the one date that you might want to know is that April 10th is both Passover and school vacation week. Traditionally speaking, the board has moved the meeting. So if I might say you want to move that to April 17th. So
I would have suggested the same.
I didn't quite hear that. Was that Lisa?
Honestly, let's do that later.
okay.
Yeah, we can bring that up as a separate issue.
Okay.
Frankly. Let's keep rolling.
Yeah. Can I suggest though, before this is posted to the public, when do you put this up in the public, Jeff?
It's up in the board packet.
It's in the board
So,
packet already.
Well, I think I didn't quite hear everything that was happening about the April 10th thing. I think it would be well suited for us to consider that before it goes as approved. And not to say we'll address it later, but I think again we're dealing with a diverse public, that we consider moving that meeting
Yeah, that's what I think the proposal is, that we'll deal with it in the future, but that the April 17th is probably the chosen date for that board meeting.
Oh, did someone say that?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear it. I thank you.
Can we add a tentative next to that on the website?
I will
Yeah,
do.
just start.
So Charmaine, we're going to add a tentative next to that date, a
Got
tentative
it.
April 17th when we put that up for discussion.
Thank you.
Did you get any pushback this year on Juneteenth, or did that just fly by without comment?
No, it flew by without comment. It worked very well. The complication is anytime we have a holiday that falls on a weekend, it adds complexity to the holiday, but it worked just fine.
Okay, so the next order of business is the holidays and closings draft.
Correct.
Um,
So I just wanted,
It's proposed.
Yep.
It's something of major discussion in the past, so I'd like to avoid that if possible, but,
okay, I'm just gonna bring up the two things that are highlighted.
okay.
One, we have had a question in the past about whether the library wants to call Columbus Day or a different name. So that's highlighted in yellow. And the other one is that exactly because of lots of discussion, when Sunday, December 31st falls on a Sunday,
Right.
because the New Year's Day is on a Monday, which it will be going into 2024. Because the board typically closes the library at 3 p.m. on New Year's Eve in order to get the staff home in the light before festivities get started and things get a little weird after dark. We close at 3, but that would lead to the library being open from 12 to 3 that day, which seems to be largely pointless. So the question would be, in that case, does the board want to close on that Sunday before the holiday?
And this year, we're open 10 to 3.
Correct, because then we're open at our normal hours. So we're open at 10 to 3 seems a little bit, we're open, that's a good chunk of time for us to be open. 12 to 3 is,
It's half a shift. or something.
it's a half shift. Yeah.
Right. Okay, what's the, what's thoughts on, we'll do the New Year's Eve, 12 to 3 issue first. What's the thoughts of the board on opening or closing on New Year's Eve day?
Well, what is the downside of closing for those 3 hours?
Just that we're closing the library and it's not, the library is not available to the public. I think yeah, for 3 hours. I think traditionally speaking, not a particularly busy day when it's not a
The
weekday.
in-person library. The
Yeah.
library on the website is always.
The library on the website is open 24/7.
Will this mess with anything? Will this disrupt anything in
The-
the?
No.
Okay, this is similar to discretionary state, something like that.
Correct. The library is allowed, the board has the authority to close the library. We're not, this isn't part of negotiation. It's nothing we put in the contract. It's just.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we close the library on Sunday, December 31st.
Any second? Caroline, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Seeing opposition, that motion carries. So we'll close on Sunday, December 31st, 2023.
2023. Yes.
Okay, so then Monday, October 9th, 2023, there's an issue about the name of the holiday. And the name of the holiday this year is Columbus Day in the record?
It is.
It is, okay, so I know that that's an issue, but do people have a feeling on Columbus Day versus another name?
Jeff, what does the state, what is the state, what will the state call it in that period?
It's still Columbus Day.
As well as federally, I just looked it up.
Yeah. So last year when we were authorizing this, we did have a discussion about it. So I just,
Yeah. Any strong opinion on changing the Columbus Day to something else?
But do other libraries do?
I think it's just, yeah, it's probably all over the place. I wish I could speak cogently about that. I cannot.
Oh, the alternate is indigenous, isn't it Indigenous Peoples Day? There's a couple of different names out there, but
Yeah, Indigenous Peoples Day.
People's Day, yeah.
Americans Day. And the two ones.
This would be for the purposes of our library on this list of holidays, because we're open 9 to 9. So it doesn't, a functional piece of this is in the name of this. Do we want to call it something else?
So this is not the holidays and other closings? Because we're not closed on that day.
Correct, but it's a holiday, it's a recognized holiday. It is that's a contractual holiday. We're open because it's a typically busy day in the fall for students. So we're open, but and the staff gets a content.
I'm going to propose that we keep it the same at this moment for contract purposes, because then it would be correct in the contract, with a caveat to reconsider annually and particularly when we negotiate the contract.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, you want to do a motion on that? We don't need a motion.
No, then I just need a motion on the rest of the holidays.
Okay, so then people take a second, look at the rest of the holiday, 2023 proposed holidays and closures. We're closed both Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, Sunday, Monday, and both New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, Sunday, Monday. Closed day Thanksgiving, but open the day after, as well as the day before. Trying to think what other things have come up in the past. New Year's Day, Tuesday, observed. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We need a motion on the pros 2023 holidays and other closings.
So moved.
On the,
This Charmaine, so moved.
okay, second. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Great. Seeing no opposition, that motion carries. Okay. Next here.
Ethics statement.
Okay. So isn't this just a read and sign type thing? Sure. Okay. So this is the yearly ethics statement for library trustees. People should take a look at it. And officers. And officers, right?
And Jeff, I'll just make an appointment to come in and sign that sometime.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Charmaine, were you saying something?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said I'll just make an appointment to come in and sign it.
Absolutely.
And then next, thank you everyone for doing that one for contact Harvey. The next agenda item is the actual public hearing on the video conferencing policy. And I'll ask for any public participation about the policy. Do we receive anything?
Nothing.
And I will say that I think the policy committee brought this before the board last month. Any changes, or I think there's like one word change designated in the minutes that we already approved.
That's correct. So I did have one question on the policy is if you are videoing in a hybrid meeting, the responsibility to notify the director or the, like, how do you notify? If at a last minute you said I'm going to video because something.
I mean, just email me, and because I have to set up the Zoom call, basically, because that sets up the Zoom call. If
I don't think that's in the policy, but I think we should just talk about it as a practice. If we're in a hybrid situation, we should disclose or notify the director so that as soon as we know we're going to remote.
right, and that's going to be important, not right now when we're under this emergency executive order, where we have a greater flexibility, but at some point that emergency order will end, fingers crossed, and that will be, this policy is going to dictate our ability to have hybrid board meetings. And then at that time, we have to have a quorum in the room. So the reason we need to have notifications is because if we don't have 4 people in the room, we we can't have a hybrid meeting.
Right, so maybe, not for the policy exactly, but for the discussion, I would ask people to at least give Jeff an hour or two. Or actually, by noon of the day of the meeting would be great, but at the very least, an hour or two to set it up, so if we don't cancel, we have to cancel, or we have to, set the meeting up.
Yeah, Mark, do you feel like that has to be in the policy, or that can that be just one of like the procedures under the policy that the board?
Yeah, I said not for the policy, so I just think as a procedure, as I understand.
Got it, sorry.
Now
If I'm missing parts of it, my apologies, I just can't quite hear everything. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, I don't think the policy should be amended. I just want to make sure that people understand by adopting this policy, it also practically, it requires a notification as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need a motion on the second adoption of the video conferencing policy.
Motion to accept the policy on video conferencing.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Charmaine, great. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, see no opposition, this passes. Okay, so now we can go to the previous meeting minutes. So people can take just a second to review the draft meeting minutes.
I can make a motion to accept the previous meeting minutes.
Can you second the motion? All right, great. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, see no opposition, that motion carried. Going into the financial report. Jerry.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right, so the year has ended, the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, with an unadjusted surplus of $418,310. I say unadjusted because we haven't had our audit yet. The auditors will probably begin the audit. We haven't scheduled the dates yet, but it'll probably be at the end of August sometime into September. There are usually several year-end accruals that will affect that balance. Items such as accrued payroll, there's a pension accrual, and there's probably a few adjustments to accounts payable and I'm drawing a blank.
The payables and
encumbrances. Encumbrances. I expect that these adjustments will bring it down, the surplus down to roughly 390,000. That's an educated guess, so there'll be some leeway to that for sure. I've included a year-end report that's in addition to the monthly reports that we do to explain the variances, because I know there's always questions about why do we have such a large surplus? What makes it up? One of the big items that makes it up is savings to salary benefits. We've experienced about almost 71,000 in savings there. We've had vacant positions held open for a good part of the year, both a library 1 and a library 2 position, plus a few part-time clerical positions. So we had some savings there. Not only in salary, but benefits and payroll taxes. Another piece that gets surplus, we do have some savings in library materials, particularly in the electronic and video materials. No, I'm sorry, in the print materials, that makes up the biggest portion of the savings, about $78,000. And that's related to generally the supply chain issues for print materials. So hopefully as we go forward and the effects of COVID are more and more mitigated and things return more and more to normal, we should be more on budget with library materials. We also have savings in capital expenditures. We generally budget about $100,000 for capital expenditures. We only spent about $12,000 this year. So there's about an $85,000 savings. And we have a contingency. We build in a contingency in the budget for emergencies, for unexpected expenses, things that come up that we just can't plan for. We didn't have to tap into that contingency, so there's $35,000 of savings on that line. Altogether, that adds up to about $410,000 in savings. I think one of the reasons that we budget for capital expenditures each year is to provide for any emergencies that come up. Again, if there's, some large repairs that have to be made, we have to fix the boiler. We have no heat, we have to spend $25,000 to fix it. We have to do it. We have to have the funds to do it. But some of those things can't always be anticipated. If we don't use those funds, it helps to add to the fund balance and give us a cushion in our surplus and our fund balance for future projects, expenditures, emergencies that come up. If we're potentially looking at a large building project, and if we have to go out to bond the project, if we've got some surplus set aside that we can use for some expenditures that come up before we begin the building process, then we don't have to bond those funds. That's that much less that we have to go out to the public for to ask for funds. I will do, once the audit is completed, I'll do an analysis of the surplus to kind of see where we stand. It's been growing over the past several years. And it's probably, it's around 1.5 million, somewhere in that range. And particularly as we head into some, major discussions about a building project, it'll be handy to have those funds available for architect's fees and other things that come up before we actually move forward to going out to the public with a bond issue. So that pretty much explains where we are as of the end of the fiscal year. If you want to look at the June report, basically the revenue and expense details the information that I just provided. There's the second page after that is more detail. It shows the various expense lines that go into some of the different categories. So that's just providing more detail on our expenditure activity on a monthly basis. Kind of doing this for your benefit, Sarah, so you have a little bit more information. And I think that's pretty much the comments that I wanted to make. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, I have a couple. I mean, thank you very much. I think this is a great report. Can you hear me? So in the cases where we're below spending on, for example, library materials.
Right.
So like YS audiobooks, 31%, and YS media. Is that mostly just the kind of the
impact
of COVID?
Impact of COVID, yeah. Well, there really were very few items, many fewer items that we would have expected to be published this year, and particularly a year ago. So like a year ago now, there was with media, there were just not a lot of things being published. Do you remember the movies? There were just not movies in the chain coming through because so many movies had been held during the deepest parts of COVID that then the following year there weren't movies being released.
Okay.
So there's one. And then the paper, there was a paper supply chain issue where there wasn't paper available. So yeah, right. So if fewer books were being published, particularly reprints of books, many fewer than we expect. So we were told by our publishers to get every copy of every book that we wanted to get, let them know early, order those early so that we could get those in.
Okay, that's my main question. Thank you. Any other questions on the financial report?
I did notice that the gifts and donations line was 310% above what was budgeted for. So I just want to, I think it's further back, I think perhaps. Just, thank the public for, I saw it somewhere, maybe, yeah, there it is. Yeah, gifts and donations was budgeted or anticipated 2,000 and was over 6,000. So thank the public for their generosity.
So we were reluctant to increase that budget significantly. Last year, we had $9,500 in donations. So I increased it a little bit, but we were reluctant to increase it a lot because it's hard to really know what's going to come in. So, it's great that the public has been really generous and we've, received, 300% of what we budgeted.
Any questions or discussion on the financial report? I'm looking for a motion to include all of the. Very used to do this all the time, so I have to make sure I do it right. The warrant.
Financial report, and as stated on page
21 through
29, including the warrant.
Including the warrant. I need a motion and statement about that.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, seeing the opposition, that motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, going to now the personnel report, page 30.
Okay, give me a second because I have to put up a slightly different screen here.
Okay.
There's an amended job status report. So let me share that out so that everybody can see. Try to make it big enough so that you can see at home. Oh, too big. All right. Adobe, why do you vex me so? Okay, so there is one additional position above and beyond the one that was included, this report that was included in the board packet. We're seeking to fill, to make a change to the district library treasurer. We're seeking to backfill library full-time. We are seeking to backfill library part-time. And that additional position was we were seeking to fill the library assistant full-time, which is the volunteer coordinator. We'd like to get moving on that as quickly as we can.
Jeff, could you repeat that last one? I heard the word volunteer, but is that the one that was funded by the budget?
Correct.
Can
The
you tell
volunteer
me
coordinator
where?
position. The volunteer coordinator.
Yep.
The official civil service title that we're using for that position is library assistant full-time.
Got it. Thank you.
And will that title allow you the flexibility of the salary high enough, flexibility not high enough to be able to improve the
I hope so.
Okay.
I would have had more confidence in the past, but I've had a lot of trouble recruiting positions lately. So I'm not going to lay my word down on that one. But yes, I think it's an appropriate title under civil service and the job duties that are under civil service. That's the title that most closely fits, and it already exists in the library. So it's easier for us to create.
Okay. Okay, any questions on the personnel report? Okay, I need a motion to approve the amended personnel report adding that library system.
So moved.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your hand. No opposition, that motion is carried. Okay, Jeff, I hand over the mic to you.
Okay. Back to my share. Well, it's been an interesting month. How about that? Contrary to media at large or whatever, we've experienced the most direct staff impact from COVID in the past 2 months than at any point in the entire pandemic. So while all of the outcomes of those infections have been mild and positive and not hugely negative, I'm thankful for that. It has led to a lot of staffing problems and issues keeping our full services open. So I mentioned this last month, and I appreciate the fact that that as far as the public is concerned or the board members are concerned, that services of the library haven't been largely impacted. I just want you to understand that when we cancel programs, it is not, it is because we're genuinely having trouble staffing the library, and we're collapsing to the core services of the library, which are to staff the desk, make sure the library is open, and keep those services going. So we had to cancel on an outreach that we had signed up to participate in, because outreach is doubly hard when we leave the library. Someone has to be here and another staff person is going out at least once. So we had to cancel on that, which we hate to do because we made a commitment to go, but we did that. So again, you saw the full-time librarian position that is open, on resignation. So we're in the middle of summer reading program. So we had to cancel some of those programs that were originally going to be held by the library. So just don't be surprised if you see something like that, or if you get a comment from the public about us having to cancel that, or we're not offering as many story times as some folks might want to see. We're trying to get back to full staff. That department hasn't been full staffed in 2 years, really for the past year. Some of those things have been related to civil service. Some of them are also related to recruitment. We have had, I've never been to the bottom of a library and one civil service list before. So we don't frequently break that list. That is a new experience for me. So I think we're not immune from those larger societal forces as far as recruitment of particularly of the librarians. So just, I just want you to be aware that it's important that you know that. We're working on filling those positions and coming up with some creative solutions to make sure that we can keep all of those things working as much as possible. To that end, one of the librarians that in order to fill a librarian one position, we moved one of our part-time librarians over to fill a full-time library position. They applied and were chosen as the best candidate. That person is one of the 2 librarians that staff on Friday evening. And that is traditionally an extremely difficult position for us to fill anyway. So I'm putting up a proposal that we close the library to in-person browsing and just do curbside on Friday evenings from starting in the month of August and probably through September. So I need your permission to do that. I won't just go ahead and do that.
So assuming people have things that they want to pick up for the weekend, they would still have the capability to do that
Till 8:30.
till 8:30.
Yeah.
They just can't come in the library. They can just.
Correct.
Jeff, can you go back to the written part that corresponds to what you just said?
6 to 9. 6 to, yeah, so road curbside pickup from 6, exclusively from 6 to 8:30. We close the library from 6 to 9.
Close the in-person.
Right.
I'm sorry, Jeff, is there a written part that goes?
Libraries close on Friday.
Yeah, it's been a source of pride for me, and I think for the library, the community at large, to be open on Fridays. But we're the only large library that's open on Friday night at all. We like to do that. It's fantastic. It is the least used night. We added Friday nights back in. It was the last shift that we opened the library for on Friday nights, just because it was hard to justify in 2018 that we'd be open on Friday nights. But it's really harder now. So.
And this is just until September?
Correct. I mean, I think it bears a larger discussion about whether it's worth it for us to be open. Most of the other large libraries in our area have modified their schedules post-COVID. If you look at the other library schedules, you see there's a lot of libraries that are open till 8 now or 7, depending on the evening.
Because I was gonna say, I have been here in the fall on a Friday. It was like a party in here. Like, it was busy and there were families and, but again, that wasn't the summer.
Right. And I think if we can, we will be actively recruiting to fill that Friday night position. We'll start right away. I'm just having a little reticence about our ability to fill that right now.
So what can we do if we're going to move in that direction to make everyone aware of the fact that we're doing it and make it a little less painful for folks because of the weekend not being open on Sunday also?
Right.
That's my only concern.
Okay.
And I am a Friday night person, you know
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll get the message out as best we can and let people know. I mean, I think it's.
Yeah, I'm inclined to just do it monthly. Honestly, we should just approve August. And then
Okay.
at the August meeting, we should talk about it.
Okay.
Because I think it should be a month thing, you know, but that's my opinion. Other thoughts?
Oh.
Jermaine?
Charmaine?
Oh, I think I was answered. Thank you.
All right, so do you want to do a motion?
I would love a motion.
All right. I'll make a motion to reduce for the month of August, to close the library for in-person service on Friday, starting at 6 on Friday. For the month of August.
I'll second it.
I just have a logistics challenge there. If we're doing it month by month.
Right.
So does that mean that that motion ends on August 31st?
Yeah.
But we don't have another, so we would approve it for September and August.
Right, I think
Okay,
it
sorry.
should
Got it.
come up on the agenda for every meeting to touch base.
Yeah.
It's a 1 month ahead. So,
Okay,
yeah,
just making sure, sorry.
right.
All
The
right.
motion would expire on August 31st.
All right. And I seconded it.
Okay, so
Okay.
wait a second. Any
I mean, can
discussion?
we modify it and also acknowledge that curbside will be open? Sure, whatever the hours, 6 to 8:30.
6 to 8:30.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, noting that curbside's open 6 to 8:30.
Okay.
Well, curbside's open more than that, right, on Friday?
It'll be open the whole rest for the
Curbside will be
regular
open.
hours for the rest of the day.
Regular, yeah.
But specifically,
Curbside.
yes.
Open curbside.
Okay.
That's why I said in person, but okay.
Thank you.
All right, so I got a second, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. See no opposition, motion carries.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's roll through. Last month, we had asked to get the 3D printer going. This is one of those services that it takes a ton of staff time for us to be able to administer. So it was one of the last things to come back. The IT department has agreed to step in and do, whereas traditionally public services, the public services librarians are servicing that. The IT department will step in and provide the services for that. It's a staff intensive piece of equipment. So we'll get that back going, studio makerspace right next door, and people can sign up for that at the information desk.
I did have more than one patron ask me specifically about the 3D printer, so I'm sure they're very thankful the IT staff stepped in.
Yeah, it's easier to train. The 2 people in IT are already trained to use that. We have since we've had the 3D printer up and running a couple of years ago before COVID, a lot of the librarians have turned over. So there's a lot of staff training. It's a larger staff. So getting that up and running, it's just easier with a small focused staff. So thank you. Just didn't want to talk about the seed library, which is mostly open now. There's just a few short growing seeds and like summer flowers and seeds that are still herbs that are still available. But we'll call it done for this year. And we had a total of 981 people pick up seeds, and which meant 6,985 packets of seeds were picked out, and an unknown number of zucchini and tomatoes are out there in the world because of the seed library. So that's fantastic. Our big news is that the Summer Reading Challenge has kicked off and is available for preschool kids, school-age kids, and adults. So if you haven't signed up for your Summer Reading Challenge, go up online, sign up, and get reading for the summer. Lots of fun prizes that are available. And this summer's theme is, just jumped out of my head. Oceans of Possibility. Thank you. Right, just pop back in. Awesome. Okay. So we had a summer reading kickoff program, which was the Puppet People, and they're always popular. So we had 2 of those, and we were able to do them outside. The weather was beautiful that day, so that's awesome. We did start the Library Speaker Consortium. That's the author talks that are virtual author talks that are available. We had the first one of those, was the author of The Henna Artist. 29 people were signed up, 16 of which watched it live, which is a decent response for a new service. And the other 29 people are able to watch that later on. They can have a recorded version of that, and they won't get the full interactive program, but it'll be available to them. A bunch of other good programs, backyard composting. There's some workforce development programs going on. The Bollywood program for kids, we had some other, we had a comment that they wanted that available for adults. We have one program already in July for the teens for the Bollywood dance program, and then we'll work on getting one for adults later on in the year. The Bethlehem Senior Chorus was great. A lot of outside programs. We had movement and music. This is one of our traditionally most popular children's programs. Back on Saturday, we had 34 people come. And the good thing is that a lot of them were families new to the program. So we always like to see new families showing up. And again, summer reading program started this month. A lot of new card signups, which you'll see in next month's statistics. But we always like summer reading program because when you get the kids, we'll typically sign up everybody in the family for a new library card. So it's the best time of the year for us to get them all together. I particularly was interested in the digitization petting zoo. This is one of our librarians, Luke, took folks into the makerspace and talked about all the conversion equipment that we have available in the library, and then demonstrated some of those items. And then we had 10 folks there, and they can just, if they know that that equipment is available, once they're trained on it, they can come in and use it themselves. And many of those items are available to take home as well. So you can convert your slides in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I might change the name on that, but yeah, no, I know that's a great program. I would offer it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of technology petting zoos. It's just a thing. I mean, yeah, we come up with a different name. Yeah, fair enough. We did do a bunch of outreach. It just is the outreach to the schools in anticipation of the summer reading program. The schools themselves, each of the elementary schools gave us how they wanted them. Some of them were done in person, some of them were done through recorded video, and some of them were done through a Zoom attendance by the librarian. So that's good. And then we were able to get to the 5 rivers for our outreach. We had a bunch of folks there, and our intern was able to participate. So you got some pictures on that. Very positive. We did a story walk there. There's a picture of that as well. The Thursdays in the Park series has begun. Those are sponsored by the library, the Friends of the Library, the Town Parks and Rec, and the Friends of Town Parks and Rec. So most of them will be at the Elmham Park. A few of them will be at the South Bethlehem Park and the Henry Hudson Park. So our friends are supporting those. I mean, ostensibly the ones we're supporting are the ones that are the Elmham, because the other 2 parks are not in the library's district. So we're supporting the ones that are here at Elmham. But we're just happy to have the collaboration with the town, and I think they're very, very popular. Our fine free lending started on July 1. The rollout has been pretty smooth. There was a big purge. Some of you may have received, you had fines. Some of you may have received the email that said, hey, we've purged your fines in anticipation of fine free lending, and we'll continue to monitor circulation as we see, what effects there are of that as we roll forward. Some interesting photos were added from the Howard Geyer estate, which were given to Mark, and then Mark donated to the library. So we've added them to our New York Digital Heritage Collection, and we'll have some fun programs with those later on in the year. Those 5G hotspots that we talked about last month are in and working. The old ones, we were able to supply the new ones without any missed continuity in service for those, because the old Sprint network was just dying. So we were able to get the new T-Mobile ones in and working, and it's a very popular service, especially in the summer.
Jeff, can I ask you a quick question about those hotspots?
Yeah.
Were those the same ones that we were going to explore collaborative funding for, or is that something different?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the satellite. We actually put a grant into Paul Tonko's office for a federal grant for the satellite internet to go. Is that the one you're talking about?
I'm not sure. I thought we were expanding the number of hotspots, and then I think I know I spoke up, and I think a couple of other board members echoed that. Are we carrying all the funding for that, or are we going to explore collaborative funding?
I thought Mary had proposed maybe using storage money for it.
Right.
Storage money to buy those. We didn't end up needing that.
Okay.
So
Okay,
the storage money wouldn't go for the ongoing costs of those, just for the.
I can check even for next month. I thought there was some discussion of why are we, it may be a different issue, but I was pretty sure it was hotspots, but I'll double check for next month.
Great. Thank you. And then just, it's important for me to mention this, I hate software names, but Collection HQ. This is included in our long range plan. This software, which is purchased through Upper Hudson, collaborating through Upper Hudson, allows us to do some collection analysis, including EDI assessment of the collection, and those analysis of the collection will be going on forward, and you'll hear more from that as we get that software implemented up and running. Do want to mention some upcoming programs because I know you like those. The Evenings on the Green is starting in July. We offered our first one. It had to be kicked to Wednesday because of the weather. It was definitely the right choice. Wednesday was a better night. Unfortunately, when we have to move things, I think sometimes the attendance is a little bit less, but I think it was a well-received program. I do want to bring your attention to the Russia-Ukraine crisis mini panel. We have 2 professors from UAlbany coming on Monday, July 18th at 6. So that's a good program. I want to point that out. We will be participating in the National Night Out. Lots of other good programs, Little Sunday Music. We're going to try to move that from the dead of winter to September to December. And we might be able to offer some of those programs out on the green if the weather holds. If not, we'll move them inside. And then cloud printing, we're still working on that. And then you may see, just got the first notice of this. The Capital District Library Council is doing a library PR campaign. So you may see that's going to be on the sides of buses, on the radio, on TV. You might see just visit your local library. You might see some advertising dollars being thrown at that. And if you're on the audio spot, you can hear me talk about how great the libraries are and how we help bridge the digital divide, and you should be coming to the library. All right, enough of all that. We'll talk a little bit, the statistic report. This one is the end of the year, so it's a good time to compare this year to last year. For instance, we'll roll down to circulation, which is, for those of you in the room, that number right there. So last year, our circulation total for the year was 469,949. That's the depth of the pandemic year. And then this year, we were at 588,614. So we're happy to see those increases. Good increases across the board. Some decreases in electronic materials as people came out of the pandemic and started coming back to the library, taking out physical materials. So we've done some nice bumps from that, but the percentage of e-materials continues to stay high, higher than it was before the pandemic. So even as we come out of COVID, still more people are using more of our services online, particularly ebooks and e-audiobooks. We don't expect those numbers. There's some drop off on some of those, but not nearly back to pre-pandemic levels. I thought I had included a circulation report in here. All right. So I'm going to try to share this up on the screen because Charmaine was asking about this last month. Year-over-year trends for circulation. Charmaine, can you see a sort of a line report? Okay.
Yes.
Good. So this is the circulation trends from 2017 to 2022. So this is about the circulation of the library for pre-pandemic times and including the pandemic. So the yellow year is absolutely the depth. That's March, April of 2020. That's that year right there. This blue line is 2021. We started off much lower significantly than our traditional circulation and just a slow and gradual increase back towards the normal. And then the green year, that is a half a year, that is 2022. And you can see that while we're still slightly below our traditional averages in circulation, that we're getting closer to having our business be a normal amount of business for circulation. So it's just been, those COVID impacts were significant, and I'm pleased that we're back as close to normal as we are. So,
Thank you for the graph.
You're welcome. All right, I think that's it. Unless you have questions for me?
Any questions? Any questions for Jeff? Yeah, thanks. Okay, Lisa, you guys have a last report?
The meeting is Wednesday, so I haven't had that meeting yet. Jeff had shared the video or the recording from Upper Hudson annual celebration. I encourage you to listen or watch that. It's very interesting. Services Committee, which I'm still sitting on, is probably going to be meeting, I would guess, toward the end of summer. Construction awards, it'll be that time of year. And then the only other thing I wanted to say is we should talk about or think about scheduling the racial equity training. We had talked about doing it in
January, February, yeah.
A number of other libraries have already scheduled there, so if we want to get a choice of our dates, we should talk about it.
Yeah, I thought we kind of decided to do that in January. January, February, but
I'm sorry, what did you say, Mark?
Know and make arrangements.
If we're ready to go on that, I will.
yeah, I would go ahead, Jim.
For the January meeting.
Well, that's the question. Do people want to do it at a meeting or do they want to do it as a separate event?
Lisa, can I ask you, how long are the
I've done
trainings?
Training with the Upper Hudson Board, I would recommend doing it separate.
Okay.
Lisa, can you remind me how much time they want per training?
Charmaine wanted to know how much time they wanted per training.
I think what we committed to was 2 90-minute sessions.
So, yeah.
So if you were gonna tag it onto a board meeting, it would be a long.
Yeah.
Night.
I mean, being a trainer myself, I think I would advocate that you don't make it a part of a business meeting. You just,
Yeah, she's saying she would recommend not making it part of a regular board meeting.
yeah, I heard that. I'm just echoing that.
Okay, then I agree. I again have a very flexible schedule, so I think we should talk about a separate meeting in January. 6 o'clock usually works, but.
So I'll put out a doodle poll for January and February. I'll put that out to everybody and we'll try to identify some day. I won't give too many choices. I'll try to keep it relatively simple. Yeah.
Is it possible at all to focus maybe on the latter part of the week, just because session starts in January?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's good. That's good information to have.
The only other thing I'd say is try to keep the dates kind of close to each other, so we don't lose any.
Okay, so not like the middle of one month and the middle of the next month. We'd like to keep them a little bit, maybe the end of January and a little bit early in
I
February.
mean, when we did ours, we kind of bunched the first, I don't know, 4, and then one was kind of hanging off the end, and that was not great, because
Okay.
the longer you're away from it, you kind of lose some benefit of that.
Okay.
Is it possible at all to do this, like both of them together on the weekend, or is that not? Is it better to do it separate so you would absorb it better?
I mean, I think we would want to ask the trainers whether they would do that or recommend that. I think it would be a lot to do it all together.
Yeah.
But certainly a week or 2 apart is probably.
Okay, well, then I don't think there's a need to ask about doing it together. You've taken it already, you know?
Okay. All right, I'll put that poll together and get it out to you.
Okay.
And Lisa, can I ask you one more question? Can you remind me, I know there were different options.
Going to do business.
Can people hear me?
For an attorney, which I think we talked about a little bit, but I don't know if you want to.
What, wait,
Hold on, Charmaine.
yeah, thank you. I just had a question for Lisa. I remember there were different options and how many sessions people, did we decide on the top, which modules or no? Remind me.
I don't think we had I think they offered the sessions and times, but I don't know that we gave them any feedback on modules or they gave us a choice.
I don't think there in the proposal, there was no choice of modules. It was how many sessions, whether you want a shorter session or a longer session, or there was a very different proposal. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I don't think they gave us choice about the modules.
Okay, so just to clarify, so Lisa, I know you said it's like 6 with the Upper Hudson. So are the modules we're getting some how do the ones we're getting compare to those? Are they totally different, or is this content just kind of truncated, or do you know?
I don't know that.
Okay,
And
just
it's
curious.
one of the things that the Upper Hudson Board did at first to give feedback for the other libraries to do the training. And that was one of the things we talked about was you need to give more guidance in terms of what you're going to cover and when. And so it'll be good to kind of circle back to Upper Hudson and ask them those questions and get feedback from the trainers.
Yeah, I think as we go forward or approach the dates, it would be helpful to get some basic information, like whether it's abstract or goals or something. I mean, this could be in the fall of what the sessions, I mean, I do this work just for the participants to have some idea going into a session, what the session is about and what the, and then they'll go from there.
I will reach out to Tim and Upper Hudson to get that information for you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, attorney.
Yeah, so I'm just adding, I know you just did your annual authorization, so I'm asking that we add another attorney to the annual authorizations. This is the law offices of Stephanie Adams. Some of you may have seen both my responses, or if you're subscribed to her, the CDLC or Upper Hudson listservs, you may get these. The Ask the Lawyer question. She is an attorney from Buffalo and expert in library district law. And every once in a while, we get a question from here specifically about our library nest. Mostly we have a contract attorney, we have a personnel attorney. We're a lot like other organizations as far as contracts. We're a lot like other organizations as far as personnel, a lot. But every once in a while, there is some specific information about our being a library, and particularly as we're coming into a potential building project, the nature of the relationship between the school district and the library district, how those taxes work. Every once in a while, I get a question that our attorneys like to try to answer, but aren't necessarily the expert in answering. So I would like to add this to one of my authorized list of attorneys that I can engage with if you have a question that's specifically about libraries. Because we are a member of the Capital District Library Council, or rather, the Upper Hudson Library System is a member of the Capital District Library Council. They've offered us a significantly reduced fee of $200 an hour for a senior attorney when we have to go and seek out a legal opinion on any issue that deals directly with libraries.
Okay.
Any thoughts, Caroline?
Oh, sorry.
I just asked Caroline, our resident attorney, anything she wanted to add?
No, I do know that the firm is all women owned. I don't know, so that's a good WMBE thing for us, I would imagine. And I want to know how she found this niche.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that I'm not going to get into the organization of the 3 Arts councils in New York, these ESLIN, but they contract with her because there are a lot of questions that come from around New York State for libraries, and she gathers those questions together and then answers them together in a monthly column. And I think having done that for 3 or 5 years, she's developed quite an expertise in library. She does practice other law, not just exclusively library law, but she really has developed an expertise in that. And you have asked me questions a couple times that were specifically about being a library that I wasn't unable to get a completely satisfactory answer for you from our attorney. So I'd like to be able to fill that hole in and when needed, be able to answer those questions for you.
Okay, take a motion.
Make motion to accept results from,
Sorry, roll back up here for you.
We accept the proposal for his retainer for library services from the law offices of Stephanie Adams, LLC.
Michelle, thanks. Second, all in favor, signify by raising your hand. Facing your opposition, that motion passes.
Great.
GASB certified valuation proposal.
Okay, in the absolutely most exciting thing that we have to do every couple of years. This is a proposal from BPAS, which is an actuarial firm, to do the valuation of OPEB, which is the other post-employment benefits as required under GASB 75. And our auditors need to have this piece of information in order for them to complete our annual audit. Every other year, because of the size of organization that we are allowed to do an interim valuation. And then on the off years, we have to do the full valuation. And so unfortunately, 2022 is a year that we have to do a full valuation. And so the price is $6,000. That it's above my authorization limit to approve. So would you please give me the authorization to sign for BPS?
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Okay, second, Caroline, any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying yes. Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Okay, great. So now we're moving on to new business, or old business.
Full business.
Building committee report and proposal from architect. So,
Hold on.
Harmeet's not here today.
Harmeet is not here. So before we get into this, I'm just going to bring up my emails. Get rid of you. I'm sorry, technology. So before we get into a discussion about having a contract with Ashley McGraw, I need to disclose a potential conflict of interest. So I'm just going to read you my letter that I will submit to all of you. I believe I may have a potential conflict of interest regarding the matter before the Library Board of Trustees. Ashley McGraw, an architecture firm out of Syracuse, included in their proposal, working with a subcontractor for HVAC and mechanical engineering design services. My brother is a senior design engineer at Sage Engineering, firm included in the proposal. My brother is not a principal of the firm, a partner, nor does he have any ownership stake in the company. To avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, I am recusing myself from the discussion about the selection of the architecture firm. You're welcome.
Thank you. So noted. Thank you. So, I guess I'll go on this. I was on some of the calls with Ashley McGraw. So we talked to the Ashley McGraw firm after the proposal that was in last month board packet. We have a slightly amended proposal here. We had a meeting, Charmaine, Harmeet, myself, Jeff, and I can't remember what I'm saying. I'm sorry.
Susan.
Yeah, Susan from Ashley McGraw kind of talked about how we need more definition or understanding about the scope of the proposal. So you'll see in the project understanding there's a list of 5 items that will go through the scope of this. This is it's still a design proposal. It's nothing is marked in stone. On this, it's just engaging that firm, her specifically in that firm, to go through a piece of slight feasibility study. And it would be not a full-blown year-long feasibility study, but a couple of months. I think she talked about 10 weeks. It kind of, I think it more represents where we are at this point. We don't need a full-blown public review, but this is not set in stone, so there is time to still talk about it. So this is the amended proposal, and if people have any questions.
Can I just add, Mark, I think with the library visioning and programming part, I would assume that the second bullet tested 2021 master plan with let's go down. It says feasibility study, the second bullet there. It says library leadership, that would include the board of trustees. The other thing I want to note is if you could scroll down to I forget what pages, go down a bit where it says anticipated design and construction project milestones. I think it's further down in the document.
Yep, sorry.
I think you can keep going down, Jeff, sorry. Anticipate, this right here, go up there, it says anticipate design and construction project milestones. Draw that to the attention of the board, has a tentative time frame there. What struck me was the, if you notice the second bullet says design development January to mid-April 2023. And then you notice that the bond vote is proposed for May 2023. So just to flag that that's going to be a tight, not a tight timeline, but I believe, having gone through bonds with the district and actually worked with this architect firm, it's going to be important to engage the public throughout the winter, spring of 2023, so that people are aware of what's going on. So when potentially a design is chosen by the board by mid-April, people know enough about it to feel confident to vote however they wish to vote in the following month. That's my only comment.
Any other comments or questions?
I did just wonder under the project understanding, she talks about adding auditorium space, but I know in our original, the long range planning meetings, we added a few other spaces around the building. And I know you said this isn't set in stone, but that definitely was part of the original plan, was to add several other little spaces, but it's not mentioned there.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, and I wanted to point that out, that this is the list that we came up with. It's not the final list, but I think we wanted to have them start with some sort of understanding. We could add other things as well.
Okay.
This is kind of what we wanted to start with.
It's my understanding
It's kind of one of these, I've been frustrated, it's like a chicken or egg thing. We need to have an idea to design.
all right. And Mark,
That ideal, I think, will morph over time somewhat,
Yeah.
but unless we kind of put something in front of the board, we're still in concept phase.
Yeah.
And let's go with 5 for now, and then we can obviously talk about more things as well.
Yeah. And Mark,
The other thing we talked about with the architect was, as you're doing these, is there something that we're missing? Is there a big thing that, like, hey, you're going to open this up? We should also do this at the same time. So.
yeah. And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the committee met, obviously with Jeff to talk about, we were going from the discussion of last September's board retreat to try to define this focus with the architect. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would advocate to, bring this to the public, the price tag on it. And some of the work, I think, is necessarily duplicative of what we've done in the past. And obviously, I just think that we have to frame that as the before times versus now.
Right.
I would, we need to reassess. I would even say from last September, I don't think much has changed, but I mean, another year forward, we know a lot of things. So I say for the benefit of the public, for anyone listening, that I understand that this may seem duplicative to the 2018 efforts, 2019 efforts. Necessary, a different world, and to just continue to communicate that to the public. To your point, we have to. That's something down.
Right. Any other comments, questions?
So during the process, we're going to work through with them in terms of whether there will be multi-phases of this, more to speak to some of the issues that Michelle referenced in terms of, all right, if we're going to do, a meeting room first, and then you use that space to work into other, improvements throughout the rest of the library. Correct? I mean.
Yeah, yes, I think we have to talk to the architect more.
Okay.
About that. I think there's definitely I'm uncertain about the big project versus the multi-project thing.
Okay.
That's a discussion we have to have as a full board. At some point to really talk those issues, you know, positives, negatives, and all those issues. Go through that, so.
Right.
Lisa, I couldn't quite fully understand. I couldn't fully hear what you were saying, Lisa.
I was asking about phasing and whether
Okay.
that's been discussed with these guys in terms of what our goals are. And there are some references in the document to it, so.
Right.
Well, are you saying
You
phasings beyond what's listed, like this phase, project 1 to 5 is one phase and there'll be a phase 2, something down the, is that what you were suggesting?
Yeah, if you look at Shelby
Yeah.
Plan, page
Yeah.
2 document, there's recommendations of project scope, all of the project for first and subsequent
Yeah.
project for implementation.
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna be part of the design option development piece.
Yeah. Well,
And we,
it's
I
my,
think we have to have that discussion as the board again.
yeah.
We keep
Yeah.
having it, like, okay, let's talk about, you know, what, how we want to do this.
Yeah, my understanding, and I may not be fully understanding Lisa's comment, is they're talking about those things listed. If you go up a little bit, Jeff. The project understanding. That's what we're now discussing with them. Any other additional, and I might not be fully understanding what Lisa's question. Any other phases of work that goes beyond that is not covered in the scope of this document. Basically, it's like, this is what we understand you want. We can always discuss with them in terms of feasibility and, you know, add things, this, that, and the other, and the interior fit and finishes. That's the existing space in the library, the main kind of shelving and where the librarians are and all the rest. But this, and again, so if anything else that's phasing into this is going to be a separate discussion, I believe. It is not part of the project that's outlined in these pages.
Yeah, I think that's, I would tend to agree. However, on the bullet on library visioning and programming, I think that leaves the door open a little bit, you know, meet with the library staff and leadership to assess current and desired space program. So
Sure.
the library leadership, the staff, and all of us on the board say,
Yeah.
you know, we like these 5, but how about let's do a 6 or 7? I think that's an iterative process that we need to come work with them. This just gets them going with the 5. But it also leaves it open with the feasibility study that there may be other things out there that we want to do.
Sure. Or we can, in that discussion, we can say whatever they do.
Has a list of 5, however, feasibility study could develop other things as well. I think in our discussions with them, you know, Charmaine, that we had, I think you're right. They think it's 5, but also understand there may be other options.
Sure. And I think even in covering those 5, we can say we're looking for a vision to have things that, you know, as we look to the future, are amenable or appropriate for things down the line. And obviously anything we add beyond the 5 is going to cost money. It's going to add to the.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And just to be clear, I was saying these 5 are in one phase, not
Yes.
multi-phases.
I think.
Or are you saying that's to be determined?
I think that's to be determined,
Okay.
honestly, because I think that's a discussion the board has to have. And I think we need to know these 5 is gonna cost X million dollars. Are we ready to do X million dollars?
Yeah.
Or do we wanna do, you know, X minus 5 or X, you know, whatever, before we go forward. I don't think if I know where everyone on the board stands, and we don't think we've had a full discussion of that phasing issue. So. I think we should all be totally understanding and supportive of whatever we go forward with, so that we can sell to the community.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted,
That's good, that's good, that's a good discussion, I think. Any other questions on this or concerns? Okay, so we need a motion to bring this forward with the understanding that library leadership means the full board of trustees. And I'll look for that motion.
Okay. So moved.
Charmaine
Charmaine moved.
Charmaine in second. Michelle, All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Okay, seeing no opposition, that motion carries. Thanks. Okay, any other future business? Open or business call?
I was gonna propose something, Mark, but I'm not sure if anyone else, I can't really see at the table any small movements. Anyone else have anything else?
No, I think we're good. Go ahead.
Okay, for future meeting, I would like us to consider at our August meeting, just to have a discussion. Last year, we had a board retreat. I think it was in September. It was specifically around, it focused a lot on this building project. I would propose that we visit in August, whether or not we want to have an annual retreat. Doesn't have to be as long as this one we had. As I recall, it was several hours. But I call it care and feeding of the board. Should there be an annual retreat of X amount of time in a certain month? And if so, if folks want to have one this fall, because we're probably doing training in the winter, what might potential topics be and what are people interested in? And people are welcome to say, no, we don't want that. But I being a group and organizational consultant, feel like there's great value for a board to meet once a year to have some topics they identify and discuss and check in about. That's just my opinion, but I would like to raise it for discussion in August to see if there is interest in the board to have a fall annual retreat.
That sounds good. I would support that being on the agenda for discussion. We can start thinking about that for the August. Any other future business or any business at all that comes forward? Okay, public participation.
Nothing.
Mark, before you conclude, sorry, in August too, I have to double check the evaluation process that the personnel committee developed with Jeff, but I'm pretty sure Jeff's part starts in the summer. So I in old business potentially for next month, just put that on there so I can double check the dates and the time frame for that, just to remind people that I believe it starts in August and it's mostly on Jeff's shoulders initially, but I will double check that.
Yep, I understand it's the same as yours, Charmaine.
Okay, we have 2 agenda items to leave for August. And, feel free at any point to suggest other agenda items for anyone on the board, obviously. Okay, I'll make a motion for adjournment. I'll make a motion for adjournment.
make a motion
to adjourn. I'll second that motion. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thanks. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Welcome, Sarah.